I have to send you a copy.
Oh.
It's 5 o'clock. Welcome to the Gilchrist Experience. Today's guest, Rabbi Weiss, an old friend, and we're going to deal with the conflicts in Israel and in Gaza. Welcome to the show, Rabbi. We had you on the phone or Skyped you in last time.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Thank God, with the help of the Almighty, and it's a privilege to be on your show, to get an opportunity to be able to convey to the world through this venue that the truth and I pray to the Almighty to bestow upon me His truth and His wisdom, that I may be worthy of conveying His truth. And this is crucial, we hope, to be able to sanctify God's name and bring peace to the world. Amen.
We're supposed to have Daniel on. Ralph, his name was, the Palestinian that was supposed to join us today, but him and Graham are not here, but we're waiting on Graham. But I want to go a little bit into the origins of your religion and a lot of the stuff that you talked about last time we were here, and the conflicts of the hypocrisy of what happens in the name of Judaism. I know it's dear and to your heart, and it's always brings tears to our eyes when we start thinking about how it's misrepresented. So give us a brief little beginning before we go into the conflict of today.
Yeah. With the help of the Almighty, again, Judaism is one thing and one thing only. It is subservience to God. It's a religion. Zionism is a transformation from this concept, from this ideology, into a base material issue, land grabbing, nationalism, and all the things that go along with the trappings that go along with this. To have an Olympic team, to have a strong army, and that they should be recognized around the world as a distinguished nation, and so forth. This flies in the face of what Judaism is.
So what we see in Israel today is a Zionist state, not a Jewish state.
Clearly, it is a Zionist state, and this is actually the nemesis. It is diametrically opposite. It is contradictory to what Judaism is. Again, the spirituality of Judaism means to serve God, to be subservient to God, to emulate God. Just as God is compassionate, you should be compassionate. It is totally not this concept of having a material piece of land, certainly not at the cost of another people. That said, there's even a very clear edicts of the Torah that states that as a Jew, we are not to steal and we're not to kill, and that's basics of the Torah. Ironically, even if it would not affect another people, Judaism forbids the Jewish people, since the destruction of the temple 2,000 years ago, we were put under a direct decree of God through the prophecies of King Solomon, that we are not to attempt to create even 1 inch of Jewish sovereignty anywhere on this on the planet Earth, anywhere to make any type of concept of a Jewish sovereignty. Certainly, we were put under oath, 3 oaths, since the destruction of the temple, that we are not, one, return en masse, in large numbers, to the Holy Land, that we were dispelled, we believe, through the will of God. And secondly, we are not to rebel against any nation. We should be loyal citizens in every country we were residing. Thirdly, not to make any attempt to end the exile, because this concept of Jews being dispersed in the diaspora around the world, we believe is a direct decree, the will of the Almighty, and it wasn't because this happened around 2,000 years ago with the destruction of the temple, of King Solomon's temple, and it wasn't because of our physical lacking, our lacking of an army. It was because as we were warned by all the prophets, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, they all warned the Jews that we had to be on a very high level of holiness to be able to reside in the Holy Land, and if not, then there will come about the destruction of the temple, and we will be dispersed amongst the nations. This happened around 2,000 years ago, and the Jews say in our prayers, we constantly say a Hebrew verse, because of our sins we were banished from our land, sent out of the land.
Let me interrupt you a minute. to explain the Zionists when they came about. I understand that Zionism started in the
A mere 100-odd years ago.
Okay. And after World War II,
Yes.
let's go from there. Let's start from World War II on.
Okay, well,
after
Zionism.
the Holocaust?
Yes, well, Zionism started around 70 years before World War II or something, or 50 years before. So they had nothing to do with World War II as far as wanting to create a state. They did have something with World War II. We'll talk about that, but their concept. They mostly came from non-religious families.
Okay.
Reform Judaism, and the word reform means that they're going to change the Judaism. It was a group that unfortunately is very large today, but basically people don't keep the Ten Commandments, and they're reforming according to their whims, whatever, and they refer to themselves as Jewish. There is Reform Judaism, and that's a whole other chapter, but issue. But it's not Judaism, because Judaism is the Torah.
Netanyahu is a Zionist.
Yes. So, well, basically, around 100-odd years ago, 130, 150 years, let's just say, this movement of people decided that instead of just dropping their religion, assimilating amongst the nations, which Reform Judaism were doing, they decided that wasn't working for them. They want to create their own homeland, their own sovereignty, and they're going to call it, for whatever reason, they decided a Jewish state, and the state, and they gave it the name the State of Israel. In other words, they're actually rebelling and going against the will of the Almighty by creating a state. Yet they decided, for their convenience sake, to remain with the name and use the name Judaism. The Star of David, they've taken the Star of David and the name Israel, because they had this agenda to create this homeland and call themselves a group called the Jewish, the State of Israel, and they were called Zionists because Zion is the city of David, which means Jerusalem, basically. And being that they decided, so they were called Zionists. Now they're going to create this homeland, and they knew that they have to have a massive amount of backing. You can buy a piece of land and get a loan from a bank if you need it, but to create a land, a homeland, a state, and your own sovereignty, that needs a massive amount of backing. So therefore, they being that they've lost their godliness and the godly morality, they had no compunctions and no problem with abusing and really hijacking, using the name of the Torah and waving that in the world and saying to the world, oh, we are the Jews, the children of Israel, the chosen, whatever they're going to call themselves, and that it's the godly given land as it says in the Bible, and we are taking back the land that God gave us, and rightfully that it's from God that we should take it back now. So in other words, they're using the Bible as a deed to get this land, to get the sympathy and the backing and the support from the Christians around the world who said that the chosen people, the children of Israel. So they knew, the leaders of this movement knew that they were flying in the face of the Torah, that they were opposed by all the rabbinical authorities universally. Everybody said to them, what are you doing? This is wrong. For 2,000 years, as Jews, we respected the will of the Almighty. We suffered through trials and tribulations, Inquisition, the many things, and we never went back to take a land because it's against God's will. Let me just explain one issue. Jews do want to return to the Holy Land, mind you, because we believe that it's God's garden, the Holy Land. But we as a Jewish people, the 101 of Judaism is that one day we believe God, with His mercy and compassion, will make a metaphysical change in the world, where all humanity will recognize God. In other words, we'll wake up one day and there will be a spirit in the world, that no more atheists. All humanity will go up, and God will rebuild Jerusalem. God will rebuild the temple Himself without any human intervention. It will be the will of the Palestinian people, the Jewish people. Everybody will join arms. To make any attempt with human intervention to take a gun and say, give me this land, then you know that you're abusing and you're going against the will of God. So that's why Jews were able to live peacefully with the Muslim people and all the people around the world, because we were never a threat. Because as a Jewish religion, all we have to do is serve God, do the mitzvahs, the commandments of the Torah, and live and as a light of people to the world, wherever we're living, as a godly people, not to create a homeland. Zionism ignored all of that. They were opposed again by all the rabbinical authorities worldwide. They willfully ignored all of this. They hijacked the name of Judaism, counting on the ignorance of the masses.
Right.
And they approached the Christian world and said, this is the Torah, the God gave us the land, we are allowed to take it and trample on the rights of the Palestinian people,
Okay.
ignore all the will of God and of the Jewish people, and that's the sad history of Zionism. I could just show you, though, by the way, like we have a book that we put out, it's called The Rabbis Speak Out. Mm-hmm. This is 130 years of the record of religious Jewish opposition to Zionism. Now remember that
130 years.
Yeah, that's.
But how come we don't hear anything about this except here?
Well, we as a religious person, we believe that God rules the world. He gives the people an opportunity to do good, and unfortunately to fall prey to what is bad. So it's always a test for humanity. And unfortunately, like you could say, the devil or the Satan gives an opportunity, to feeds and tries to ensnare people. The creation of the Zionist state is evil. We believe in its essence. As I said, you're oppressing a people, you're banishing a people from their land. Right. It's against what people say humanitarian rights, we say against godliness. And right. The Jewish people, we are frustrated, we are humiliated with what is being done in our name. So Jews around the world, at the time when Zionism started, we were talking about all the European and the Sephardic, the North African, all the Jewish communities, the leaders, Hasidic, means Ashkenazic, from Europe, Middle Eastern, they all stood in opposition. And I'll quote just like Rabbi Yisroel Meir Cohen. He was head a codifier of Jewish law. He passed away in 1933. He was from 1839 to 1930. So that's way back. That was the beginning of Zionism, before they had the state. And everybody recognized him as a giant in the Jewish leaders. And Jews were led by their religious leaders, because that's what Judaism is. Right. And he was in the Eastern Europe. He was one of the greatest leaders, recognized around the world. Nobody refuses. And this is what he wrote: "Therefore, every man whose heart fears God must exhort all Jews not to give their children to the Molech, like a means, like a type of Satan or idol worshippery. The Zionists are dead limbs of our people, which causes the entire body to rot." That's how we refer to them. Okay. The dead limbs of our people. That's from Omer Ami Masel Melech. So I can go on and on. Each one, okay, according to their own ways, they spoke against Zionism. Yet Zionism, before World War II, didn't have that strong hold on okay, Jewish. But after World War II, you asked about World War II, yeah, but because unfortunately Hitler and then the communists at the same time, the first people that they attacked when they unfortunately killed millions of Jews, but the first people who were killed and sent to Siberia or anything were the teachers and the leaders. So the rabbis and the leaders, yeah, were wiped out, and the Jews.
Basically.
Excuse me?
Most of them were Hasidim.
Well, I can't say most of the Hasidim, but all the leaders, the ones who taught, were in the greatest danger. They were killed summarily, and they were so the Jews were left after World War II leaderless, and the Zionists took the Jews who were in refugee camps, who were in camps after right after the Holocaust. And they took these Jews and they said, "We're going to give you land," because the United Nations gave them the rights, unfortunately, to properties in the Holy Land. So they said, "Come to us, we'll give you land." They also manipulated that other countries should not should not take in the Jews. Right. They've done it just even recently when Yemenite Jews were in danger. They put out a statement that nobody should take them in. That when Jews after the USSR ended, Germany, there was a lot of Jews who wanted to go to Germany, and they said to them, "Don't take them in." They put pressure on them because they wanted to get these Jews to go up to the Holy Land, and they'll use them as cannon fodder for their Zionism. So the Zionism, another issue which is very important, the Zionists take the Holocaust, and maybe you could say they're the only ones who gain, who reap anything good from the Holocaust. It's really ironic, because the Jews were murdered, millions of Jews. The whole world suffered, and the Zionists take this Holocaust and they use this as a business venture. In other words, they tell the world, "Look, the Jews, you were silent. So they're using it as a guilt run, a guilt ride. They say you were silent when the Jews were being killed. Now you have to help us have a homeland. And people feel sympathy for the Jews, and they don't know that it's against God, against the Torah, and they help them.
Why isn't your... how come nobody's listening to you? I mean, I don't understand this. I mean, you are the symbol of Israel.
I could just say...
You're a rabbi, and you're a teacher, and everything you say is the truth, and yet nobody's... What does the American Jewish community think about what you have to say?
Well, the Jewish community is, of course, you can divide that. There's, in the spectrum, there's Jews who are non-religious. Unfortunately, it hurts to say, but the vast majority, do not keep the Ten Commandments. They're Reform Jews. From the religious Jewish community, you could say, I'm certain that the majority, their belief is in the Torah and not to support Zionism. If you will go to the very religious communities, invariably around the world, if you go to Jerusalem, in Al-Quds, occupied Palestine, or you will go to, in London, Stamford Hills, that's the most religious area. You will come to New York. You will go right across from here, from Manhattan, Williamsburg. You will find that's the most largest concentration of religious Jews.
Right.
You will find that over there, there's not one single Israeli flag flying, because the Jews there, the more religious, the more anti-Zionist, because if you know your religion and you practice and you respect the religion, then you know that it's totally contradictory to Zionism. Zionism is this rebellion against God to create a state, and Judaism is subservience to God and will expressly forbid it to have a state.
I'm sure my audience sits there in bewilderment of everything you're saying here. But you know what we're going to do? I want to get a chance to get Danny on the phone, this Palestinian that you were talking to a month or two ago.
Yes.
He was supposed to have been here today, and we're waiting for Graham also. But I want to take a good look at the Gaza and what's happening to the Palestinians.
Certainly, yes.
And we'll just run this quick clip, and then we'll come back and see if we can't get Danny on the phone. I want you two to talk, and maybe we can resolve some of these.
With God's help.
Oh, I know it's a hard one to tackle, but we'll make a small attempt to.
Fine.
All right? We'll be right back at you as soon as we watch this clip. All right?
The following report contains some disturbing images.
Today was supposed to be quiet in Gaza. Israel extended its ceasefire. But Hamas did not.
Is that the right
This was
one?
filmed by the Israeli military. They say it shows rockets being fired from a school across the border into Israel.
What is the benefit to the Palestinian people of mass breaking the troops and then having massive Israeli air
It's a little loud out
We're
here.
looking for a total agreement and a full agreement that will end this killing and lift the siege totally and get our freedom.
This was Israel's response.
We're going to just pause for a minute. That's the one I was going to run through next. And we have this other one. This is on Hamas. And Hamas is a prelude to ISIS, really, because I see how they're murdering their own. They're accused of spying. All right? Let's run this piece. This is the piece I really wanted people to see. All right? All right, let's see another piece. Yeah, this is the one. Yeah, that's the one.
In Gaza, Hamas-led gunmen had a message for locals. Conspire with Israel and you will pay with your life. Mass fighters brought suspected collaborators to the main square, executing at least 18 of them before a crowd of onlookers. Posted on a nearby wall the men's alleged crime. They provided the enemy with information. The punishment, say some Gaza residents, was just.
They are spies. They helped kill people. The Jews did not know there was resistance here until these collaborators told them. We should clean our area of these people before we cleanse it of the Jews.
The executions come just a day after an Israeli airstrike killed 3 senior Hamas commanders and were capped off by a night of targeted attacks throughout Gaza. By midday Friday, militants were firing rockets into Israel. The cross-border escalation left 3 civilians dead in Gaza and 2 injured in Israel, with no sign of a let-up in the fighting.
I was a little shorter than I thought, but welcome to the show, Graham Weatherspoon. We're trying to get Danny on the phone. He was supposed to have been here today, but Rabbi Weiss, we gave him the first 10, 15 minutes, and he explained the whole problem between the Zionists and the actual American Jew. My goodness. The real Jewish community. Welcome to the show, Graham Weatherspoon.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Good to see you, Rabbi.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure and an honor.
Bless you. Bless you.
Yeah. Well, we got a brief look at what was happening in Gaza with Hamas. Now, it looked like the prelude to ISIS.
Well, with the help of the Almighty, I feel very uncomfortable with that categorization because Zionism vilifies, and their spokespeople and so forth, they vilify anybody who speaks up against what they're doing against Zionism. And they right away refer to them as anti-Semites, inhumane, and so forth. The Palestinian people are victims, and they have, as the Muslim communities around the world, their track record is that the Muslim communities throughout the history we've had, there may have been some bumps in the road, but it's a fact that the Muslim countries was a safe haven. They opened their doors, the Muslim countries and the Muslim people, for the Jews while we were going through trials and tribulations, the Inquisition, the Crusades, and so forth. And we were distinctly and clearly Jewish, and we had no problem coexisting and flourishing as Jewish communities in all these Muslim lands. Palestine included. Palestine under the Turkish Ottoman Republic, and then the Jewish people lived there. My colleagues are generations, many generations Palestinian. They lived in the same courtyards, babysat each other's children. We have many, many stories, people who can bear witness to their coexistence. All of a sudden, these people get referred to as villains, and they hate the Jews, and it's a religious conflict. This is totally false. Hamas, I'm not their advocate, I'm not their lawyer, we don't condone violence and so forth, because Jews have a system of praying to God and trying to live in, amongst other people. We have certain systems, so we're not again being an advocate, a lawyer for any movement, but when the people, the Palestinian people pick their leadership, or their leadership is referred to with names or vilified, and when they say that they want to live with peace with Jews. I've met with Hezbollah leaders. We went to Lebanon. We went to visit Sabra Shaltil, and they were our hosts. We went to visit in Gaza. We brought medical aid. We brought ambulance.
Also.
We went to Iran here. We brought an ambulance with the help of people of Norway. We brought that a few times. We went to visit, here I could show you when we went to Gaza. A few times we brought medical aid, a few times we brought different medical things. It was symbolic, because what they need is freedom, and they need total freedom, and so forth. But just to show, we had a delegation of rabbis from Palestine, a letter from Palestine, from UK, Canada, and the US, and we met with Ismail Haniyeh, and we had a joint press conference where he stated, we have no problem with living with Jews. And he said that openly, and the people there embraced us. They said, we have no problem with coexisting. We have a problem of being oppressed, of being our sovereignty stolen. We as Jews stand up there and we cry with them, we sympathize with them. We said this is wrong. The concept of taking away their homes, their freedom, this is all totally against the Torah, against Jews, against Judaism clearly, and against the Jews around the world who go in the ways of the Torah. So what is being done constantly, the Jewish state, within the Jewish symbols, and anybody who stands in opposition is anti-Semitic, is again, this is all despicable, it's evil, it's wrong, and it's flatly wrong, and there's no words. We don't have the right, the strong enough words to condemn the concept, the existence of the state of Israel. It's rooted in heresy against God, that God can't protect us, we have to take a land. It's rooted in rebellion against God, because we're not allowed to have sovereignty, we're not allowed to steal and kill. And therefore, when the leaders of them say that they're being oppressed and that they're being murdered by the Zionists, or what happened recently in Gaza, but all this is true. So therefore, I feel very uncomfortable when we hear how they're referred. No, I'm not going to go into the actions. I can't, again, we're not their advocate, but I can state that their cause, the root cause, is clear. They are right in their position. Palestine should be free. This is not my opinion. This is the opinion of Judaism. This is the opinion I can state, and I could show you. We have a book put out called The Struggle. The chief rabbi of Palestine in the 1920s went and approached when Zionism started. Rabbi Sonnenfeld, the king of Abdullah and the king of Transjordan, the king of Jordan, met with them. Rabbi Sonnenfeld, the West Bank, and gave them a letter of loyalty. He said, I'm representing over 1 million Jews from Europe and from the Holy Land. In 1947, he had passed away. This Rabbi Sonnenfeld was Rabbi Dushinsky, approached the United Nations delegation. We have the pictures of it. It's in the United Nations records. Here you can see where he's sitting with them in the book The Struggle. And he said, I want to tell you, he said, and we have this book called Documents. It's the Traditional Torah Opposition Zionism. Rabbi Sonnenfeld, it's in the records, approached the United Nations delegation, and I'm going to quote just one of the lines in 1947. July 16th, 1947, and he presented himself as a representative, as the chief rabbi of Palestine. He said, we furthermore, I'm quoting, we furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine. He saw they were later they were ignored. The British mandate they had control, and they gave the Zionists the power, and they saw that imminently there's going to be a creation of the state of Israel. 4 months later, in November 18th, 1947, remember the state was ratified by the United Nations in 1948. So prior to that, he sent another letter, Rabbi Dushinsky, to the Secretary General of the United Nations, and he writes, the Jewish Orthodox community of Jerusalem, comprising 60,000 souls, or objects to the plea of including Jerusalem in the Jewish state, or its citizens becoming automatically citizens of the Jewish state. Our community demands that Jerusalem be an international zone under your protection. In other words, they didn't know, there was no Palestinian Authority yet. So they said, leave us free, at least leave us Jerusalem out of this quagmire, out of this terrible creation that you want. And I can just tell you that from that day on, Jews have been protesting against the Zionist entity, against creationists. Before they were created, the state of Israel, they were murdered, they were assassinated. In 1920s, when Rabbi Sonnenfeld had met with King of Transjordan, the one who arranged this meeting, his name was Dr. Dahan. He was assassinated. He was assassinated in cold blood. He was maybe the first famous martyr in July 1, 1924. He was maybe the first famous martyr. He was a diplomat from Denmark who became a religious Jew. He represented Rabbi Sonnenfeld. From that day on, I could show you Jews are brutally beaten. They are summarily, a lot of times, assassinated, the leaders, our rabbis and leaders. This is an ongoing...
and we never hear about
and nothing is written about that, but it could show you. You can see the tens of thousands of Jews who demonstrate here in New York. Every year, there's a few times a year demonstrations in Manhattan. Tens of thousands of Jews come over from the religious Jewish community. In Palestine, they get brutally beaten. But here, we don't get brutally, because the police protect us, thank God, because they're not Zionist police. And in these demonstrations, that I could show you the tens of thousands of Jews demonstrating, this is in front of the White House, for instance, when Netanyahu came to visit President Obama. And this happens in New York in front of the Israeli embassy every year, a few times. You have tens of thousands of Jews. It never gets reported, not in the New York Times. Sometimes they will report one of these newspapers, the Post, the Daily News, or one of these, and what they will report with some ridicule, they'll make a statement, a small comment. When the Zionists have 50 people demonstrating, it's a big issue written about. But when the Jews who are true to the Torah, who represent the true Judaism...
We got Ralph on the phone.
Okay, yeah.
Ralph is here.
This is never covered, unfortunately.
All right.
Yeah.
This is Ralph, a friend of ours. Speak up, Ralph. We
Hey,
got
how are
Rabbi
you?
Weiss here.
How you doing, Rabbi?
You're supposed to be here today.
Assalamu
I
alaikum.
know. How you doing, Mr. Weiss?
Assalamu alaikum. It's an honor, a privilege to speak to you.
Alaikum assalam. Shalom alaikum, like they say.
Alaikum salam.
How's it going?
Alhamdulillah, with the help of the Almighty.
Alhamdulillah. Ken, like they say. You see, we know our words. We're living together. We know the language now.
Fascinating. It's a shame you couldn't make it today, Ralph.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a couple of things to do, actually, and I'm actually still doing some stuff right now as we speak. But yeah.
Well, tell us how last time you heard from your son in Gaza.
Well, I spoke to him. I actually spoke to him, and he's actually playing ball these days. And I just asked him how his life over there. And life over there is difficult. I wish they would take those walls down and give them that freedom. It's like you're trapped inside 4 walls in every village. You know what I mean? So that's one thing that's really annoying the people over there.
Well, I wish you could have heard what Rabbi Weiss just related to us about Zionism and how there wasn't supposed to be a Palestine, a Zionist state.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard it. It's 1920 something, and in 1947.
47.
47. The United Nations. I think they approved it or something like that.
1948 was approved.
Yeah, 1948 was approved. Yeah, and that's when they came in. That's when they took everybody out their homes.
Yep.
Well, what do you think we should be doing? I mean, is there something that we can do to help?
Listen. I honestly really think right now, if you really look at it, you got a child that's born there 30 years ago, and you got another child that's born there on the other side 30 years ago. So he's going to say that's his home, and he's going to say that's his home. So, I mean, we have no choice. Nobody has a choice but to live with each other. That's the only solution. It's not there's not enough land. There's enough land for both. And it could work. But when the politicians make it work, that's the main thing. Can they make it work?
Ralph, it's Graham.
Graham, how are you?
All right, good to speak with you again. Is the issue of ISIL and the Levant.
The who?
ISIL, I-S-I-L.
Right.
The Levant, because they claim in their claim that under the Levant, Islam is to take that entire region, even the state of Israel, in their conquest as they move across that region. How do you think ISIL will be impacting relationships even between, Jews and Muslims when these radicals are pushing so hard to gain territory?
You talking about ISIS?
Yeah, right.
Do I think they're going to... First of all, I don't know about ISIS. I don't believe... First of all, Muslims are not allowed to kill Muslims. Muslims are not allowed to kill any human being.
Right.
That's against our religion. We don't believe in that. And I'm sure
Right.
that the Jews don't believe in that neither.
Right.
And that's our religion. We're not supposed to kill nobody. We're not supposed to kill nobody. We're not supposed to take nobody's life. So with ISIS, I don't believe in ISIS. I don't know what they're doing or what kind of job they're trying to do and who they're trying to protect. But to me, I don't see them protecting anybody. I see them destroying more than helping.
All right, but as this scenario continues, as if one of my family members gets killed by one of your family members, therein starts the rivalry, and the feeding,
absolutely.
the feeding of the tensions and the distrust and everything. I see it as just another problematic issue in the region to bring further discord between the people of the area.
That's true too. But the question is, where did they come from? Where did these people come from? Who put them there? Who gave them all these weapons? You don't just have 30,000 people coming out of nowhere.
Right.
Where did people come from? Who brought them?
Well,
that's the question.
There were
Where
two.
did they come from? You don't just have 30,000 soldiers coming out of nowhere in Iraq with fully armed.
if I may just, I don't think that it's this issue, it complicates what is happening, but maybe it's just, again, there will be people who will use it to confuse, again, the issues. We have to always step back and think, what is the problem here? Because I think the Zionists always try to confuse, like they'll say Hamas, Hezbollah, and that the Palestinian people want to kill the Jews, and they'll bring this up. And they're talking about a reaction. Again, we're not condoning violence, but they always try to make the reaction the issue. And they say, you see that there's tension, that there's hate, that there's mistrust. But they will never allow you to get down to the basics and say, wait, step back. When you're trying to bring a remedy for a sickness, you're going to put a Band-Aid and you're going to bring cortisone and you're going to try to cut parts of the body. And the cancer, the tumor will continually grow if you do not look at what the cause is. Mm-hmm. The issue here in Palestine is one thing and one thing only. A foreign body was introduced to an area. It was a piece of sand was put in an eye, and it's causing all the issue here was not a difference between people of different religions, between Jews and Muslims and Christians. We were living together for hundreds of years without any human rights groups, without any United Nations. And there were people had guns. People had in their homes guns. It wasn't forbidden. They coexist. They babysat each other's children. We have people alive who testify to that. So therefore, if we look at that, and then, and as Ralph was saying, if you get the ones who are here who are trying to manipulate and use the issues, you put them aside. The world, the people who have the power, who we try to speak to these people, the ones who have the authority and the power, that we plead with them. History is something that could teach you. History shows we've lived together as different religions, distinctly different in peace. Yeah. What has changed? The introduction of this selfish, flawed, illegitimate, according to the Torah certainly, Zionism that wants to create a home, ignoring the people who are there, ignoring the Muslim, the Christian, and the Jewish community that was coexisting. Remove this impediment to peace that causes the endless river of bloodshed, then we can live together in peace and harmony. As Ralph was saying, people who are living there, we as a Jewish people are required, we would have to ask, first of all, to act profusely, apologize for what has been done, restitution for the people of Palestine, and if they would allow us with their kindness that we could coexist amongst them, then as Jewish people, according to the Jewish law, then we could live amongst them as citizens, and the Palestinian people, however they want, whether it's a democracy or a Muslim country, that's the Jewish requirement as a Jewish people, and that as Jews around the world who are true to the religion, we accept that. We can live in Iran, we can live in every country, because that, as a Jew, and we have no problem. History shows we did live, and that we flourished as Jewish community. We have no problem living together as a people. As I said, I went to Gaza. We went to Hezbollah, we went to all these people. We went to the people of their country. Everybody embraced us. This has nothing to do with religion. People are being conned. They're being they're not only brainwashed, but they're being they're misled with a conniving system, a powerful PR that it's ISIS, it's this, it's that. Every day they're changing the story just to make sure that the people shouldn't get tired of what's happening, and that they should support this occupation that is against God. We can live together. Remove this terrible, basically flawed. How would they allow a Christian country that says that you can't have Muslims living there? Would they allow the world body allow that? How could they allow this so-called Jewish state that is not, but how could they allow the so-called, that say that it's ours, and that the millions of Palestinian people who are not Jewish should have to pledge allegiance to something? This is democracy of the United Nations. This is not. It's a country of the people of Palestine. And as Jews, we attest to this, that God requires as Jews to accept this. It's the people of Palestine. We want to live amongst them in peace and to give them back their sovereignty. We can live. But when the occupation the terrible attack on Gaza, we put out a book. We had over 100 activities in that 5-6 week period around the world. We had demonstrations all over the world from Jews around the world in every country. I mean, can't say every country, from Australia, from New York, France, England, Palestine certainly, and the United States. We had tens and tens, over 100 demonstrations.
Rabbi, you know what's the first thing I would like to see happen? I would like to see those walls come down.
Right. I mean, it's a big prison.
I would like to see those walls come down, because when you look at it, you know, it's like you're living in a cage, and it's sad to see kids that they can't go out a certain, you know, to a certain, like, you just blocked me from seeing my cousin on the other side.
Yeah.
Or my neighbor, or my friend, you know? So,
and what does that bring?
Ralph,
what does that bring? That brings to animosity.
Sure.
The fact that they're dividing these families brings hate between the Palestinians. See, look what the Jews are doing to me. They're the cause of rivers of bloodshed and driving a rift between Jews and Muslims by aiding and abetting this. And the world, by aiding, they think they're helping Jews. What they're doing is really driving a rift deeper and deeper between God's creations. This is wrong. It's totally wrong.
Hey, Graham, real quick. You know, back then when I went there in 1977, 76, and I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I went over there, and the things that I saw when I was going with my friends, they would take me with them for a ride, you know, to what we call it the Jewish side. And these people, what they would do is they break bread together, they'll work together, and they're best of friends. You hear me, Graham? They're best of friends.
Yeah.
40 years
ago.
ago.
All of a sudden, you know, here comes this one guy, Shimon Peres, not Shimon, what's his name, the one in the coma, and Bibi, and then they destroy the whole thing.
Right.
They want to wipe out everybody.
You know, it's like the wall in Berlin.
It's like the wall in Berlin. It's like the wall in Berlin, but you know what? At least Berlin was just one wall. This is every village. Every village you go to has a wall to it. You know, one village you can't see the next village.
You know what we need to do, Ralph? We need to show we need to show more about what life is like in Gaza.
Well,
you know, we have to show the Palestinian side to the story. There has to be more done with this. We have a quick piece that I'd like to run, so maybe we can get the people to actually see something inside Gaza and what actually happens. Just run that second piece, and we'll hang on, Ralph, and we're going to come back and see what we can do here in America to get you and the rabbi together as a team. All right? Maybe on future shows where we can do something monthly, where we can possibly have demonstrations here in America about getting Palestinians and the righteous Jews together. All right? Run that piece for us.
You know what? Over here, when we're in New York, we speak to each other, we say hello to each other. You know, I met a friend of mine over there, and I saw him in Jerusalem. He didn't even look at me.
Really?
He didn't even look at me. He didn't even talk to me. And I knew, like, I saw you in Jerusalem. You didn't say nothing to me. And I was like, wow.
He most probably was. He most probably was afraid of the Zionists would arrest him as being a spy or something.
And you, Rabbi, you won't be. I mean, there's nothing to be surprised of. I got a lot of friends over here that are Jews over here. Right. I mean, I know them for years. I know them since their kids were born.
And as you said, that in Palestine itself, there's already the Arab people. A lot of them walk over to the Jewish side, and they're friendly. I mean, I'm not trying to answer what this guy did. He didn't greet you, but it was of course a terrible thing to do. But I'm saying most probably he feared, because, as you know, a lot of times when you go through checkpoints or or when you go through the borders, they harass and they do the Palestinian people who come in. They treat them like dogs many times. So
they're all friends with each other and stuff like that. Sometimes it's hard for them to even go see each other. But, you know, it is what you're going to do, Rabbi. Right now, we just got to figure a way how to, you know, bring peace among, not just us, among the world, man. You know?
You know, I just showed a piece a few minutes ago on Hamas murdering 18 Palestinians because they were fraternizing with the Israelis.
Yeah.
So perhaps they misunderstood some of the friendliness?
Right.
You think that might be part of it?
It could, you know what, it could be that, but you know what, who knows what it could be. But at the end of all this, we got to try to find a way where everybody can make peace and live together. You know, it's like we're not taking nothing with us at the end. When I go, we're going underground after this.
Mm.
You know? So nobody's taking nothing with them. They might as well try to enjoy their lives instead of one maybe committing suicide and the next one, how do you call it, sniping people. You know, that's all got to stop. It's all got to stop. You know, what does a 12-year-old or a 7-year-old on each side have to do with it?
Mm.
What do they know? They know nothing.
Right.
You know, and then you look at a kid that's grew up like again, like somebody that's born there and 30 years old, and I'm born there and I'm 30 years old, and you know, we look at this and you know, it's like you can't default this guy. He don't know nothing. He don't know what happened in 1940 or what went on.
It's even more than that. It's more than that. It's they get funding from around the world. They have literally billions of dollars they get, and they take this money and they use it proficiently, unfortunately, in the education system, that they constantly inundate the children. You know, it's a brainwashing system that, again, that these are our enemies and that the Palestinian people are the enemies and that it's a religious issue and that, again, that God requires us to have the land. I mean, our Jewish communities around the world are hated by the Zionists and looked at as enemies and that we're traitors to the Jewish people. We find this all the time. And not only that, it happens in the Holy Land, in occupied Palestine. Around the world, the Zionists use this. They college campuses. They use Hillel. That used to be an organization to give Jews a place to pray in colleges. And they've taken it over, basically, and they use it as a Zionist propaganda machine. It's heartbreaking to see how many people that they believe that the essence of their religion is that they have to have this homeland and that Palestinians are automatically enemies. They try to equate them with the Nazis. You know, it's unbelievable. We have such a mountain to climb to fight this, but we have to believe in God. Just like in the USSR, it disappeared overnight. In South Africa, there was this terrible apartheid, and nobody believed it could stop. And yet, the grassroots, the people continued, you know, stubbornly, and they changed, even though South Africa was a recognized nation in the UN, with their terrible apartheid, and they were distinguished, and everybody did business with them. But it was the people were plugged on, the grassroots, and it was stopped, and they weren't massacring each other. With the same thing here, we can, as people, because we believe in God, and God requires of us to be just and kind, to stand up there, oppose, and speak out constantly. One day we will. It says in the Torah, "Why are you rebelling against God?" It will not be successful. We will be successful. We will get the world to step back and say, what are we pushing here? A relatively new movement that's just causing heartache and blood. Let us stop this, and then the Jews and Muslims can once again live together. We have to do and pray to God, and with God's help, it will end. I'm telling you, it will end, because this is wrong. It's against God, and it's God's will. This occupation will end. We fear how much more bloodshed and suffering will happen to it, but we have to continue doing. And we go around the world speaking. We went to the EU, we went to Brussels, we plead with the world by the United Nations now, when the presidents came. We stood in front of the United Nations day in and day out, the Jewish community. And we keep on saying to the people, stop. Look what's happening to the people in Gaza. They're suffering.
You were demonstrating?
Certainly. We have pictures of that. We went every day. We had people out there. And
you heard nothing about that.
And that was out there. Like I said, there's pictures, but the world doesn't report it. But we are out there. We have to go. It's a godly obligation. Look, we tell the people, it's not in some wilderness. There's a media there. See what these people don't have. Adequate water, food. Everyone is psychologically damaged because of the oppression. We have to stop this. Yes.
Well, we got to show
not to cut you off real quick. You know how diseases get started? Same way what's going on in Gaza, that's how you get a disease. Not to say enough about Ebola. Same thing in what do you call it? In Liberia. They make these people suffer. They don't give them what they want, and then they eat all this crap and they get sick.
Certainly, That's why we plead with everybody, don't be intimidated. You're not anti-Semitic if you're speaking up against Zionism. On the contrary, if we get this ended, then there will be more peace in the world. The people in Gaza, we went to visit a few times we went there, the orphanages, the hospitals. Every family is, unfortunately, they have somebody who was killed, maimed, and they're sick, and how could this go on? It is so wrong. We as Jews, like I say, we are frustrated, humiliated. It's being done in our name. This is wrong. It has to be stopped with God's help. We hope it can end peacefully, because like USSR stopped, this can be also stopped.
I just hope it doesn't happen again, because it happens like every 4 years, but I hope it doesn't happen anymore. They got too many orphans over there.
Yeah. Just now, by the holiday, there was, I don't know if you know, there was unfortunately, the Zionists have the ones who are religious Zionists, and unfortunately in the world they see most of this because they are the settlers, and they look, and they're always in the television, so people think that the religion supports this. These are a fringe group that do not represent the true religions. I say, you come to Williamsburg here, the most religious communities are anti-Zionist. Yet you have Zionist religious, because they fuse together religion with that. Most of these people are idealists who grew up from either non-religious or marginally religious families, and they incorporated the Zionist propaganda, and they're religious Zionists, but they don't represent the religion. These people, for instance, just went up to the Temple Mount, and they on the holiday, and we put out a statement against that. We had a demonstration against it. I mean, I don't know if you can see, we had from our organization put out from the rabbis of Jerusalem and New York, and here you can see we had a demonstration. Now you can see on our site, NKUSA. You can see it, .org, NKUSA.org. You can see entering the Temple Mount is forbidden in Jerusalem. State of Israel, a heresy, murder, and theft. We put out both statements, and we had demonstrations. We will not countenance, with God's help, what is being done in our name, and with God's help, we will do. We cannot accomplish, we can only do. God is the one who accomplishes. We turn to God, and we ask everybody to pray to Him and to do, not to be silent. And God will, at the end, we hope, speedily and peacefully end this.
You know what I want to do, Ralph?
Yeah.
Ralph, I want us to pick out maybe a month from now, before the holidays, before Christmas.
Right.
I like to show some unity between the American Palestinian community and Rabbi Weiss and his community right here on the show, where we can get people to call in and tell them their positive experiences between the Palestinians and the Jews here in America, if we like. And it shows some unity right here in America. And maybe we can start here and show to the world that it can happen. If it can happen here,
with God's help, I'd gladly do it. I have somebody who escorted me here. I couldn't, if you would like, I can just introduce him. Would you like? Rabbi Rosenberg. He's an 8th-generation Palestinian. And
he's Palestinian.
8 generations of Palestinians, and their grandparents are still alive, and they remember how they lived together in peace. I could just introduce him here.
Can we get a camera
8 generations here. Come around here. And this is, and they live together in peace.
Sit down for a minute.
Bless you. Take my seat.
8 generations Palestinian. They live together in Jerusalem.
Can you see this, Ralph?
Just come in.
Are you watching this on your computer?
No, I'm really not. No, I'm actually at work. I was just like.
No, he doesn't speak English.
He doesn't speak. Just to consider.
He doesn't speak English.
But this is 8 generations from Palestine.
We just want to introduce him.
Rabbi Rosenberg, and their family name was Eisenbach. They came from many generations. They lived together, babysat each other's children, lived in the same courtyard in Jerusalem. There was no human rights because it wasn't necessary. They lived in total harmony. Let's go back onto the show. I just wanted to introduce a simple example of the many hundreds of thousands. Palestinian from many generations. His grandparents decided not to be by the 6-Day War. In '67, they said, we're afraid of what will happen to about this this drunken euphoria that Zionists have. We're afraid it shouldn't affect our children. We don't want to be under the occupation. And then his grandparents, not having another language, they spoke Yiddish like Jewish people do, and yet they didn't have any business experience. They picked themselves up as tens of thousands of other Jews did and still do. They left Palestine first. They moved to England, then to Canada, and they moved moved out because they didn't want to be under this occupation. And there's only one example of tens of thousands of others who did so. We have Jews who are still living there, like I say, large communities who refuse to recognize this occupation and they stand and demonstrate against it. They get brutally beaten all the time. There's tens of thousands of Jews there demonstrating. We have pictures of that. You can see on our site. They're there all the time. It doesn't get shown, but they're there. And,
Rabbi, when is the next
demonstration
here in New York? I know we have been to
we've
one
before. You should have us covering this stuff,
right?
Like we did before.
It's usually, unfortunately, it usually happens because of some terrible incident that happens in Palestine. Then, so then the rabbis call together demonstrations. You should know they do it very reluctantly, the demonstrations, because the Zionists target our demonstrations. They come, they take openly pictures, and they look through the people, and whoever they can harass, and people lose their jobs afterwards because they look, oh, you work for this and this business. They call up the business, you like advertisement, you do business with us.
So you've been threatened?
So I've been threatened, certainly. I've been hit, I've been threatened. Many
what
of
happens after you appear on this show?
Well, with God's help, God will continue protecting me. With God's help, as He does. Our chief rabbi of Palestine moved out of Palestine, Rabbi Teitelbaum, blessed memory. His life was threatened. He was many times. There was attempted assassinations against him, and God protected him. But there's many others, and many people, Jews, who, when they demonstrate, they lose their jobs and so forth. We still, still in all, we have tens of thousands to demonstrate. There would be hundreds of thousands who would be more outspoken. I have Jews from around the United States who constantly contact me, and from Europe, and they say, we're with you. We would love to stand up there, but we can't because they're targeted. The New York community is such a large community, thank God, or in London, or different, the very large communities, so it's easier to stand up because we're insulated. We have more of our own communities. But other places, Jews are afraid to speak up because of the attacks against them, the inhumane, attacks that the Zionists do.
Why is it that? I get it. They're not religious. They're not practicing truly.
They're definitely not
secular.
Practicing with their actions. They're secular. Even the ones who infuse religion into it, it's wrong. It's like somebody who's a religious Jew who's going to eat pig, or like they desecrate the Sabbath. This is a basic desecration of the essence of what it means to be a Jew.
All right. So they're purporting to be. They're claiming to be
right. That they're
Jews,
abusing and have hijacked the religion and what it represents. It's like you'll find in other religions, I hear the same.
We've run out of time.
Thank you, Ralph.
I really appreciate you calling in. It'd been better if you'd been here, but we have to settle for that. But again, here at the Gilchrist Experience, we try to give you the truth. And a religion is supposed to be a love of God, a love of people, a love of human beings. So we have to learn from each of these flaws that each extreme takes, ISIS and Zionists, and learn to love one another. And the God in me loves the God in you. And stay tuned next week for another interesting Gilchrist Experience. God be with you. And learn to love people like God loves people. That's what all religions teach, right?
That's right, absolutely.
Yes.
Well,
thank you for coming. God bless.
God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ralph.
All right, thank you very much.
Sorry, you got ejected from your chair, but I got you back.
No. I wanted.